like to tell you a story where I got shot at.
Jeez.
So I was, I was driving down the street on the east side of Buffalo with my partner, and a guy in a wheelchair came up and waved us down and said that a kid out of a group of kids had pulled a firearm on him, a pistol, and either tried to rob him or threatened him with it. And so we pull up and we see the group of kids, and then of course the one walks away from the group, and we're like, "Ah, there's our guy." So I go over there, talking with the window down. "Hey, bud. Hey, what's going on? Hey, you talk to this guy in the wheelchair?" No. I'm like, "Hey, all right, listen, no big deal. You just lift up your shirt and show me you got no weapons." He lifts up his shirt, and I see the handle of the firearm, and I'm like, "Oh, time to go." And I'm about to open up the door, and I look over at my partner. I'm like, "Get ready." I open up the door. He runs. He's got the gun out in his hand, and I have my gun out, and I'm about to shoot. It looks like a 15 to 18-year-old black kid in the back. Guess when this was? Hands up, don't shoot.
Wow.
Guess what I did?
Nothing.
And, yeah. In a millisecond, I was like, you're either going to shoot the black kid in the back, and it doesn't matter because I'm a white cop, or I'm going to put the gun down, and I'm just going to sprint and try to tackle him. So I put the gun in my holster, and I sprint to tackle him, and he goes and pops around off behind and at me, and then throws the gun. And then I tackled him into a thorn bush. And he was very upset that I had tackled him into a thorn bush. I'm not joking. And I looked at him like, dude, you have no idea how lucky you are. And at the same exact moment, there was a BLM protest in my union at the Buffalo Police headquarters for Michael Brown, for something that had nothing to do with...
Your union was protesting for Michael Brown?
No. The protesters had got inside Buffalo Police headquarters and then went into the union office.
Wow.
And we're like, down, defund police, man. And then here's me, just deciding, I guess I'll get shot if I get shot because I don't want to spend time on the news anymore.
There were many cases where you could see a police interaction and the suspect had the knife in their hand, was climbing into a car full of women and children, and the cop shot that guy, and it was a $25 million settlement, like within a week.
Yep. Oh, was it Jacob Blake?
Yep.
Was it the guy's name?
Yep. Jacob Blake.
I remember that one.
So this is
Benjamin Crumb turned that into a $25 million. That he gets at least a third of that. So that's $8 million in a week. That's not bad.
Yeah.
So he was leaving his ex's house. Is that what it was? He had previously assaulted her. Is that what happened? And when the cops tried to stop him, because it's been a while since I've gone over the details of this case, he grabbed a knife. He opened his car door, grabbed a knife, and then was coming out. They shot him. He had a knife in his hand. NFL players put his name on their helmets. A guy who, I believe he sexually assaulted a woman and then drew a knife on cops, and they were celebrating this guy.
And they shot him in the back because he was climbing into a car full of people.
Right. Yeah. Grabbing, is that what you're referring to? He's grabbing the knife. And there's children in the car.
Yeah. He had the knife.
He was stealing the kids.
He walked around the outside of the vehicle with the knife clearly in his hand. I mean,
he was
and the
kidnapping
cops
the
are
kids.
4 feet away. They see the knife. They're giving him orders. Drop the knife, stop, comply. And then he climbs into this car full of women and kids. We can't let him drive away like this.
We only ever see, and I think it's because of the power dynamics of like the authority granted to the police, you only ever see the bad ones. Sometimes it was funny. I mean, during the Facebook police brutality era of the late 2000s, 2010s, when the only thing on Facebook was police brutality videos, sometimes you'd see videos of cops being cool. Nobody cares about those videos. I remember videos where it's like the cop plays basketball with the kids and they high five. Yeah. And, it gets 100,000 views. Conservatives are like, this is great. And then the video of the cop, shooting the guy in the back gets 50 million and gets shared every other week over and over and over and over again.
Right. The algorithm trains you, doesn't it?
So this is an interesting phenomenon. There was a period where literally Facebook was nothing but police brutality. And one of the most trafficked websites in the world, all it did was share police brutality videos. The people running were making millions of dollars. And so imagine a 10-year-old kid born, or, a kid born 2000. He's 10 or 12, 2012. He goes on Facebook and all he sees is an endless stream of cops being unreasonable, shooting. What do you get? A generation of young people in Gen Z who think police need to be abolished, that they're roving bands of white supremacists, Klansmen who murder black people all day. You get these videos where they ask people, how many unarmed black men do you think were killed last year? And they say 10,000. Yeah. When the number was 9 in the entire country. Yep. And that creates the perception of all cops are bad all the time.
Yeah, because we don't know things from first principles, right? We know things from what we're shown. And it's effectively, everything we're being exposed to is effectively brainwashing. And if all you see is police violence, you become brainwashed into believing that's the norm. By the way, in this, Anthony, Carmelo Anthony stabbing case, I'd heard that in one or another of their high schools, there had been 5 murders already in the past year. Now, these are huge high schools. I think there's maybe a couple thousand students in them. But, you know, if every couple of months someone in your school's getting murdered, it becomes like the norm.
Yeah.
And I wonder to what extent that might have driven decision-making on the part of either of these guys.
Yeah. Like, you know, the question around the knife gets brought up frequently. Why did he have it? The perception large on the right is that he was intending to kill. That's why he brought it. Was the knife illegal? Was he allowed to have it? You know, I don't know.
I see it as a self-defense tool. Like, you can have it, even if you're not supposed to have it on school grounds. You know how you know you get in trouble? You get caught.
They didn't charge him with it, though. Is like,
I don't think it's a crime. Texas has very weird weapons laws.
Mm-hmm.
They do have a specific statute that applies to knives with a blade more than 5.5 inches.
Right.
If you're in possession of that, it can be a problem, especially in particular locations like a school, and if you're under 18, which would apply here. But I don't think, generally speaking, a smaller knife, a normal size folding knife would be a problem. By the way, I'm of a certain age, but when I was in high school, I carried a buck knife every day. I mean, it was perfectly normal.
Buck knife. Well, I suppose the bigger philosophical question, you know, as we've got Gibson to go here is, why do you think, you know, if we haven't gone over it, but why do you guys think there's been such anger towards the fact that you guys have allowed the family to fundraise off of it? I understand it's a probably obvious question, everybody. I'm asking so that they can answer, not because I don't know the answer. But I'm curious your thoughts on, you know, how people perceive it. Are they right? Are they wrong? Or, you know, what do we do?
Well, fundamentally, what do? We get back to a foundation in God. I think this is just how I view the world and things. I think we've debased society. And the byproduct of debasing society is principles wane, moral values wane, and we begin to be engrossed in our own narcissistic behavior. Everything's about us, towards us, and we spiral. And social fabric begins to unwind, and we're seeing all that stuff happen. I think the way that you start to remedy that is you operate with principles, which is what we do. And I do think that there is a redemptive element to a company like ours that says, hey, we're not going to just bow to the emotionalism of situations, but we're going to stand on the principle and the reason why these principles exist, which is that they actually have moral oughts foundations and a moral lawgiver that we derived them from as our foundation. John Adams said this, our framework for our country was only for a moral and religious people. It was derived from these ideas, and we've unwound that 50, 60 years ago. We've replaced it with our own freedom to do whatever we want. So those are the fundamentals. I think Gibson goes doing it. Why are we seeing? I think nobody, and this is just very interesting that it happens that we're having this conversation on Good Friday. Because the whole purpose of the Good Friday story is that humanity is broken. Not just the left is broken and not just the right is broken. Humanity's broken. And that God in Jesus redeemed humanity, did something incredible, and that we are all without excuse. And I think that again, pride, a fundamental value to just the idea of God is humility, because it immediately says there's something beyond me. There's something, I'm not omniscient. I don't know everything. It creates a sense of humility. And when you rob society of that, when you begin to like move out of that place, all of a sudden the ills of humanity start bubbling to the surface. And I think that's just what
one of the arguments that I've heard, someone argued this to me. So my position on, say, free speech used to be classically liberal. You know, I disagree with what you say, but I will defend to the death your right to say it. Now my attitude is, if you don't believe in free speech, I will not defend you. Sorry, bye, have a nice day. And this is...
What do you mean by that?
So in the 2010s, a person on the right would get banned, censored for some reason, and the left would cheer and celebrate. We did it, guys. Then a liberal would get banned, and everyone on the right would say, no, this is wrong. We are against censorship. Unban the person. And they would get unbanned. Then a person on the right would get banned and the left would cheer and celebrate. We did it, guys. We got unbanned. At a certain point, I said, I am no longer going to equip my enemies to destroy me.
Right.
So I will defend free speech for literally anybody who believes in free speech, even bad people. That means if I meet a guy who says he's a communist, but he routinely defends the idea of free speech, If he gets censored, I will defend his free speech. But the leftists and the liberals who call for censorship will never be defended by me. Not that I disagree with free speech, but that I will not use my voice to empower those who seek to destroy me, my morals, and my way of life. And so with this issue with Give, Send, Go, someone asked me that, Tim, this is what you said about free speech and other issues. Why would we not just say, this is the other side? We defend ours. We defend those who believe in our values, not you. And, my view of this was largely that at the core of this case, I do not view Carmelo Anthony as a BLM actor who is intending to destroy the U.S. government. It's a case of a murder at a high school in which this guy's not at war with me over ideology, whatever. However, the response is, the position now is that it's largely a pro-BLM racial identitarian movement funding this Give, Send, Go. Why should we allow that to operate, to pay for their bills?
Well, I think the danger always when you walk down that path of not defending someone that you disagree with, that opposes you, is that you just spiral to a further depth of depravity. And I think you become exactly the thing that you hate about the other person. And this is, I think we have to defend the rights of people that disagree and want to speak out against us. Otherwise, death creeps in everywhere. And I think it's the downside of freedom. I think is that the reality of freedom is that bad stuff does happen. I mean, it's a byproduct of it.
I think there's different filters we can take to these events, right? And some of them are kind of superficial, and some of them are really fundamentally important,
Sure.
just as matters of due process. I mean, you mentioned John Adams, right? A founding father. When our nation fought a desperate 8-year war against the most powerful military in the world to free ourselves from tyranny. That same John Adams defended the British soldiers at the Boston Massacre, right? So different filters. Just because he was fighting their king didn't mean he was not going to defend them from criminal charges in court. I think you can look at the Carmelo Anthony thing and have kind of we all have things we go about our day that are more important. You have kind of a superficial, maybe emotional take. Maybe you're being swept along by the propaganda waters that are in the media, and you come to some conclusion. I think he's guilty. I think he's not guilty. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. That's what we all do about normal things that are in the news. You might get a more technical understanding based on law of where those things stand. But there's at least a third filter, and that is our society has set up a process to actually determine whether or not we're going to lock you in a cage for something you did. That's due process of law. That means you get a hearing in court, you get an impartial judge, you get an impartial jury. Two sides get to make their arguments, tell their story of guilt and innocence to the jury, and the jury makes that call. And the higher the stakes are, and those are the ultimate stakes, right? Spend the rest of your life in a cage, the more effort and commitment and due process we have to be willing to make.
Thanks for watching this clip from the Culture War podcast. We're live every Friday, 10 a.m. to noon, so subscribe and come hang out.